Greetings and welcome to this 13th episode of the radio show Living Off the Grid in the City with your host here, Hector Vladimir. Today is October the 24th, 2015.
Edited and updated April 17th, 2024.
In today's show, I would like to discuss a very useful technology and one that has been around for a long time, at least as long as the internal combustion engine has been out.
And it is
the conventional backup generator. This is your everyday gasoline-powered internal combustion engine generator, which are also powered by many times diesel, even LP gas. I've seen them where they are available.
The internal combustion generator
is not clean energy, obviously. It is not something I advocate as a primary way to provide your power, even if you get off the grid. It is loud, for one, very noticeable. For the most part, they have some quiet ones out there, but they are very expensive compared to the ones that are widely available. They are polluting. They cause all types of issues with noise, pollution, vibration, expense. They do require a large amount of gasoline or fuel to be replenished with. So it could get quite expensive, even if you use it only a few hours per day. Gasoline, right this moment,
mid-April 2024, is rather expensive at about $3.50 per gallon.
As a matter of fact,
about 16 years ago,
it was close to $4 per gallon here in the southeast United States. Just in recent memory, 2008, 2009, gas was approaching the $5 per gallon mark. Much more in other parts of the country, like the West, California, and Northeast, New York, New Jersey. Gasoline is not a sustainable fuel source. It is not renewable, and is obviously something I do not advocate. Having said that, I do recommend using and considering, at the very least, gas-powered generators as your backup to alternative energies, alternative fuel sources, and renewable energy systems. Generators could be handy, could be even very convenient to have if you have an alternative fuel energy source that may or may not be as dependable as you would like it to be. Solar energy is very affordable, but it's not 100% reliable, only because there are some weeks that the cloud cover is pretty bad. Depending on the area of the world that you live, this may be more so than here in the southeastern United States, where sunshine is plentiful the majority of the time. But there are also, even here, some weeks where sunshine is scarce, even non-existent. Just recently we went through a period of very continuous rain, cloud cover, and very little sunshine.
And
my solar power system at home struggled to keep any amount of usable charge in my battery systems.
And this
reminded me that even here in sunny Georgia, sunlight could be out for more than a few days. For example, that time it was at least a week and a half with very little sunshine. It does occur, and for this I recommend having a backup generator as your response, especially if you have disconnected or plan to disconnect from the power grid, which I highly recommend. There are many ways to make the use of power generators much more.
Number 1, affordable.
2, bearable. 3,
convenient. Additionally, there are
3 disadvantages of having it. 1, the noise. 2, the cost. And 3, the environmental disadvantages of having it. You can more or less combat those. First, the noise. Let's tackle that. Of course, having a 70 decibel producing machine on in your backyard is not good either for you or your neighbors. It is not pleasant. If you have tried it during or after a storm, you can attest to how loud it can get, even with windows and doors closed in your home. You can experience some high noise inside of your home, and a whole lot more if you are near where the generator is. Again, it could be up to 60, 70, 80 decibels of noise, which is quite high. Just to put it in perspective, a
jet-powered aircraft,
about a dozen meters away from it, produces about 120 decibels. So a generator could be about half that if you're close to it. You can make modifications to the generator itself, which cost money and takes considerable mechanical skills. You need to know what you're doing. You could install mufflers. You could install a variety of other technologies to make it quieter without adding any other structure on the outside. But I believe the most accessible and the simpler way to go about reducing the noise is just to add an outside barrier to the noise. For example, if you live facing trees or vegetation, you can put it somewhere in the vegetation, away from the house, away from neighbors. And the trees themselves and the foliage, the shrubs, and the plants around it should absorb quite a large amount of noise. So you can drop the noise level half or even more just by doing this simple thing. That's if you live in a wooded area. If you don't, it's going to be a bit more challenging. You would have to make a few investments in materials, structures, and so on. The way you go about that is building a barrier. A barrier is nothing but a physical structure that blocks noise. You can get quite elaborate with it, fancy, or you can keep it simple. A simple wood panel could reduce noise by at least a few decibels from the total noise level. Just simple wood panel or plywood blocking at least one side of the generator could bring the decibel level to at least variable levels. And you can do this very simply and very easily. You can get a bit more elaborate and build a box and put it around or over the generator. Of course, you have to ventilate the box so the generator doesn't drown in its own heat and its own pollution. There are many videos in the internet where you can see tutorials of how to build such boxes. And they are simple to build relatively if you have just basic building skills. It's nothing but a wooden box. You can build a frame and then put rectangular panels to cover the frame. I went a little bit more elaborate than just a simple box. I put some lining inside, some foam insulation, which absorbs noise quite readily. The foam I put is just nothing but those bedding lining that they sell. They're like foam. They're usually white or yellow. They sell them at the store, bed sheets, and you can use that to line your, I call it quiet box. It's just a wooden box built bigger than the actual generator that you will use. So the sizes do vary because generator sizes vary quite a bit. You can build yourself that or have someone build one for you and cover up your generator. The box by itself, just wood, no other lining, should bring the decibel level to near half. With the lining, any kind of insulation, that foam I told you about, it could bring the decibel level even lower than that, even lower than 50%. Combine that with putting the generator out far from the home or other neighbors and even put it near vegetation, the noise level drops to almost, at least, hardly detectable. It won't go completely away, but it would be much less noticeable, maybe over 70% reduced. You can go further, you can do more to reduce the noise. You can dig a hole in the ground. It would have to be a quite large hole to where the box and the generator could fit in, and you can also have access to the generator. So it would be a rather large hole, but it doesn't have to be very deep. About half the depth of the actual height of the box itself would probably be enough, and the noise would be absorbed. A lot of it, at least, would be absorbed by the ground itself. Yes, there would be a little bit of a vibration that could be felt around, but this would be hardly noticeable. Maybe the wildlife animals around it may notice it, but unless you're standing right by it, notice a little bit of the noise, but not much of that. You can get more elaborate than that, but that's probably as far as I would go. Again, generators should just be used as a backup to some type of alternative energy. Solar, geothermal, wind, or any other type of renewable energy. And this is for those days, those weeks, where renewable energies are not replenished. For example, if you have a wind turbine that day or week where there's almost no wind, then you would need some type of backup power generation. This is where a gas-powered or liquid propane generator would kick in. You can have an elaborate automatic switching method from alternative to the generator, or you can have it just manually where you can turn it on by the flip of a switch or a crank. The next disadvantage of having a generator is its cost. Gasoline is not always cheap. As a matter of fact, it has historically been expensive and increasingly so. If you have diesel Diesel in this area of the world is more expensive than gasoline at the moment. So if you have diesel, you may have a longer lasting and more powerful generator, but
you will be
paying for it much more than if you had a gas generator. Again, diesel and gasoline and other fossil-based fuels are polluting. They cannot be stored indoors. They produce waste. They are expensive again and again. They are not good for the environment and the fauna and wildlife that may be exposed to it. It is polluting and also dangerous in some instances, where the generators, if you put them too close to the home, carbon monoxide may be leaking into your home, which is a highly poisonous gas. It could present a hazard to people as well as animals. Pets could be harmed by this carbon monoxide. They may be lingering around a generator that may be on. They may inhale this noxious gas and even pass out and die from it. There has been many cases where generators have caused deaths. All you got to do is a quick search online. We'll find a few recent cases. Even those cases where the generators are placed in seemingly ventilated areas like garages or near a home on the outside of the home, that is a huge disadvantage for generators and something to mitigate at all costs. How do you mitigate the cost? To begin with, 1, you don't use it much. Again, it is a backup generator. Keep it as such. I do not recommend you to use this generator as a primary source of energy. It will be rather expensive and you will defeat the purpose of getting off the grid. You will end up polluting and spending more money, much more so than if you just keep your grid power. Unless you live in one of the oil producing countries where citizens get a discounted rate for gas, which are very few countries, you will end up spending more money than you could possibly pay the power company, regardless how much power you use per month. A gallon of gas is close to
$3.50 as of April 2024
on average in this part of the country, and putting 10-15 gallons per day would put you back considerably on a daily basis, monthly basis, yearly basis. Do the math. It is expensive. So use it just as a backup. You should, especially in this part of the country, you should only use it very rarely during periods of prolonged low sun, cloudy conditions. It should not be used on a regular basis. To mitigate the cost, you can also do your research, buy the cheapest gas, 1, and 2, make sure you buy a generator that will be just enough to cover your power needs. Don't overdo it. Don't buy a huge generator if you're only going to use it sometimes and only a little bit, especially if you don't have so much equipment to run. Generator ratings change. They do vary quite a bit. They can produce just under 1,000 watts all the way up to various and many kilowatts, depending on the size. Cost will considerably change depending on what size and power rating generator you get. The more power generation that is possible, the more it's going to cost. So keep it limited to the amount of power that you actually need. That will keep the maintenance and the fuel costs down as well. Get you a generator whose fuel is cheap and abundant in the area. If LP is cheap and abundant in the area, get an LP. If gasoline is abundant and cheap, get that. If it's diesel, get diesel. If it's natural gas, you get my point. Get the generator's fuel source that is most abundant and cheap in your area. LP gas is a very attractive choice only because LP gas is readily available in many areas. You can safely store it, and you can also reduce the noise levels by using LP gas. LP gas generators on the average are much more quiet. And lastly, about the disadvantages of using your backup generator, the environmental damages that you may cause by using such technology, such device. First, pollution, very important, very critical disadvantage of using a backup gasoline or gas-powered generator. You will contribute to pollution, you will contribute to carbon emissions, not only environmental air pollution, but also water pollution, and also noise pollution. And you may be harming plant life and animal life. I say noise pollution because noise does affect not only humans but also animals and the environment in general. Animals depend on sound a whole lot when it comes to surviving in the wild. If you drown out calls for mating or for any kind of territoriality, you will be impacting the ecosystem negatively. A lot of people either don't care or are not aware of this type of damage. It is a very sad and depressing situation where a lot of people just are unaware of the damages they may cause because of the use of certain technologies for their own comfort. Because at the end of the day, for most people, it is about number one, themselves, selfishness, unfortunately.
Of all the disadvantages of generators, these are but a few things to consider.
Noise pollution, environmental pollution, harm to wildlife and vegetation. When I say harm to wildlife, the noxious gases released by power gasoline generators are significant, especially if you run it for a considerable amount of time. Animals may come in contact with the carbon monoxide and pass out and or die. Also, plant life could be poisoned or contaminated by the release of carbon monoxide into the air and carbon gases. It is not all about us humans. It is also about our surroundings and those creatures that share the environment with us. And again, another way to mitigate damages to the environment is to just simply limit your use of power generators. Power generators should be used as a backup technology, only used very seldom and sparingly. Remember, as I said before, most people in reality only need a few hundred watts per hour of power during the busiest parts of the day. So even in a prolonged period to where you have to use your generator a bit more often, you do not need a huge or large generator producing thousands of watts of electrical energy per hour. This is just a myth put out there by various entities, including neighbors, people, the media, society, interests, such as power companies, governments. So a very small generator would do. They sell Honda and other brand generators that are quite small and compact and quiet, that produce close to, I was surprised to find out they produce about 2,000 watts running at full throttle. Maybe about half of that running at half throttle. That's quite impressive for such small. It's about as big as your average
suitcase, and it's about 60 pounds or 27 kilograms in weight.
And they're quite compact and quiet. About 40 to 50 decibels of noise, which is still noisy, but it's not nearly as noisy as most generators of that size wattage. So I would consider, as a backup, purchasing one of those, acquiring one of those generators, and hooking it up as your backup power supply in case your alternative or renewable energy source either runs out temporarily or it's not enough. Generators could also be used not only as backing up your demand for power from alternative sources, they could also be used for complementing or supplementing your power needs. Especially if you have some high wattage consuming devices or appliances such as your washer, dryer, dishwasher, your air conditioning. You can run those for a short time or longer if you wish and have the means to do so. You can run those with a power generator, your gas powered generator. For example, if you're completely off the grid, as I plan to be here shortly, you can run window ACs, which require a larger amount of power than most other appliances. With a backup generator, you can run your washing machine, drying machine. You can run your generator for a few hours, take care of washing, doing laundry, and other high power demand tasks, such as running shop equipment or doing cooking, such as microwaving or running coffee pots and stuff like that. Stuff that you may not be able to run with your solar energy, wind energy, because there's so much power demanding and not efficient enough. You may be able to run those with your small generator. It's a good idea to have a generator that is electrically turned on or switched on, if at all possible. This is mostly for convenience. It may take some effort to turn on a manually started generator with a crank and ripcord. If you have a electrically switched generator with a starter motor, this is more convenient and you can do it from the comfort of your inside of your home.
If you have it wired to where you can just turn a switch, you can put the switch on the inside in a convenient place and flip it off and on as you need it. You can run a set of wires out to the generator and to the starting mechanism or motor and run the same wire to your home location. The farther the generator is from the home, the better, as long as it doesn't affect other people. If you wish to do this setup this way, expect to run some long runs of wire, which are probably going to be buried or going overhead. You can have it wired to where it'll kick on automatically in case your alternative energy power source ceases to produce power. There could be a mechanism that switches automatically to your power generator, turns it on. Of course, this is a more elaborate and fancy setup. If you could afford it and are able to do such setup, by all means do so, and I highly recommend that you look for automation and seek automation as much as possible when it comes to producing your own energy. Share your ideas, share your setups, help other people achieve, if not what you have, something similar, and you never know, you may have a new way, a original way to do certain things with setting up power generators to work with other alternative energies.
And just to complement on this discussion about generators and how they can be used with renewable systems, I will read here an article from shopsolarkits.com, and the article is from November 10th, 2021. Solar and generator hybrid systems, everything you need to know. And they go into some detail on what is the solar and generator hybrid system, how does a solar and generator hybrid system work, advantages of a solar generator hybrid system, the potential disadvantages, and is a solar generator hybrid system better than a gas or solar generator? And finally, is a solar generator hybrid system right for me? Gas generators have dominated the electricity sector for many years, but with the price of fuel constantly on the rise and the transport and storage thereof also being a challenge, solar and generator hybrid systems are rapidly taking the lead. This issue with solar energy, though, is that it can be unreliable and often isn't enough to meet the needs of your load. This is why solar and generator hybrid systems were created. These systems combine solar and gas generators and make up for the aspects that the other one lacks. In this article, we discuss what these solar and generator hybrid systems are, how they work, and who will benefit from them. What is a solar and generator hybrid system? Solar generator hybrid systems combine the solar power generated from photovoltaic PV cells with another energy source, usually gas. These hybrid generators are useful when there are power outages and can supply electricity to a large area. The most common combination is a mix between the solar energy of a PV system and diesel. These systems will usually consist of solar panels, a gas generator, batteries to store the generated energy, a charge controller, and an inverter to change the current to an appropriate form. The diesel part of the system fills the gap between the load that needs to be powered and the power that is generated by the PV system. Battery storage enhances the overall performance of the system, allowing you to store generated energy for when you need it most. The solar energy part of the hybrid system helps to decrease costs and pollutants emitted into the environment. These systems are typically used to help households run off-grid. How does a solar and generator hybrid system work? The two energy sources are meant to complement each other. When energy loads are high, the PV component system can help to supply additional energy, which lowers the amount of diesel fuel needed to meet demand. An additional source of power comes from the diesel generator when the solar panels and the batteries are no longer able to fully supply the load. The generator supplies the load directly but also charges the battery through a rectifier. This makes sure that your battery's capacitors are always charged and able to run as a backup whenever they are needed. Most solar and generator hybrid systems also make use of an intelligent energy management system. This ensures that there is optimum interaction between the diesel generator and the solar system. Each source is providing the exact amount of energy necessary, so there is no waste. The intelligent energy management system ensures that as much solar energy as possible is used and that the diesel generator kicks on only when it's necessary and is advantageous for the system. This helps to save on costs, keeps you from refilling the diesel, and ensures the optimal functioning of the system. Advantages of a solar and generator hybrid system. Cost effective. Hybrid solar generator systems are more cost effective than 100% gas generators because they make use of the energy from the sun, which is completely free. Because solar energy is helping to power the load, less fuel is used by the generator. This in turn saves you a lot of money. Return on investment. Solar and generator hybrid systems usually pay for themselves due to the large savings you make from not using so much fuel to power your home. The intelligent energy management system also helps to ensure that maximum savings are made, which further enhances the system's return on investment. Decreased emissions. Since the system largely generates power through solar energy, there are fewer greenhouse gas emissions than there would be in a normal diesel generator. If you're trying to be earth conscious but still have the appliances in your home run properly, solar hybrid systems may be the answer you're looking for. Reliable and accessible power supply. The fact that solar energy is combined with a diesel generator makes the power supply a lot more stable and reliable. If the system relied on solar energy alone, it would not be reliable enough to consistently power your home. For example, in the winter months, when it's rainy or overcast and there is less sunlight, a solar generator might not be able to keep up and supply the necessary load. With a solar generator hybrid, if there are periods of limited sunlight, the diesel generator will kick in and makes up for what the solar system is lacking in terms of producing power. The PV system needed isn't as large. The solar panels used don't have to be as large as they would be if it was solely a solar generator. This is because the system has a diesel generator as a backup, so it doesn't have to rely on solar power alone. This reduces the amount you will have to spend on solar panels, which lowers the initial cost depending on the type of generator you get. Powers larger loads. Solar generators are normally only able to power small devices and appliances for a limited amount of time. Solar generator hybrids, on the other hand, can power loads as big as entire households, and as long as there is fuel in the generator. Energy is never wasted. With the use of intelligent energy management services or devices, the power supply is highly controlled. It makes sure the correct amount of solar energy is supplied for the load and doesn't use energy from the diesel generator unless it is absolutely necessary. Additionally, if the correct equipment is used, energy is fed back into the batteries and stored for later use. So even solar energy is not wasted. Potential disadvantages of a solar and generator hybrid system. More expensive than a solar generator. Although a solar generator hybrid system is cheaper than using only diesel generator, the long-term costs are still more than using a purely solar generator. The diesel element of the generator requires fuel. Depending on what season you're in, it may need more than usual if there's no sunlight. Not as environmentally friendly as a solar generator. Again, even though a solar and generator hybrid system is more environmentally friendly than a standalone diesel generator is, it is still not quite as environmentally friendly as a purely solar generator. Burning diesel emits carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, even if it is less than what it would if it was a diesel generator working alone. Maintenance may be required. The solar part of the system normally doesn't require much maintenance, as there are relatively few moving parts. Diesel generators, however, will need some maintenance after a few years. When using an oil engine, as a generator does, you have to replace things like spark plugs, oil filters, and a few other components. This could lead to additional costs being involved on top of the fuel and initial costs. Complex installation. The installation of a solar and generator hybrid system is complex. The initial stages of designing, installing, and constructing a hybrid system takes a lot of work and planning to put together, and it is a bigger job than each component is on its own. Noise. While the solar part of the system is noise-free, the diesel generator can be quite loud and noisy when it is operating.
Is a solar and generator hybrid system better than a gas or solar generator? The debate over solar generators versus gas generators has been going on as long as solar generators have existed. This is essentially why the solar and generator hybrid system was created, to get the best of both worlds. It is difficult to say which is better, as they all have their pros and cons. Essentially, the one that's better boils down to which one best suits your needs. If you are still left wondering if solar generators are worth it, or if there's only one type of generator that's better, the answer is that all three of them are definitely worth it if they meet your needs. Is a solar and generator hybrid system right for me? To ensure that you get the right system for your needs, there are a few things to consider. Solar and generator hybrid systems are best suited for anyone in remote areas. It is usually also difficult to transport diesel to these areas, and storage can also be an issue. If you're looking to move over to solar energy but have a large load to power that most solar generators can't handle, a solar generator hybrid system will be a better option. Lastly, if you live in an area that experiences frequent power cuts and blackouts, you should also consider a system like this.
We have covered a few options and technologies, settings, setups of how to hook up your conventional power generator as a hybrid system with your alternative energy systems. Of course, I did not go into any of the intricate wiring that may be required for whatever system you may want to set up, but of course you can look that up. Again, I've covered some of the technologies that will enable you to get off the grid, and there are many more that I will be discussing here in the next few episodes. I hope you find it interesting enough to join me again, and we'll see you next time. Have a good day, night, and keep trying to get off the grid.